In most parts of the world, people expect the mind to slow down with age. But in Japan, there's a different idea. There are elders, in their 80s, who remain clear, present, and mentally sharp. Not because they try harder, but because they think differently. Over time, they develop small mental movements, almost invisible from the outside. But these movements shape how they see the world and how their mind ages. In this video, we'll explore three of them. In the United States, we spend more than $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare. We have the most expensive gym equipment, the most sophisticated brain training apps, the most elaborate supplement stacks. Yet cognitive decline, brain fog, and mental fatigue after 60 remain stubbornly, relentlessly common. Researchers who first traveled to Japan's longevity hotspots, places like Okinawa, Kyoto's countryside, and rural Nagano, went looking for something extraordinary, a diet secret, a rare mineral in the water. Some genetic advantage invisible to Western medicine. What they found instead was so ordinary, so daily, so quietly embedded in the texture of regular life, that many of them initially dismissed it. Movement, not exercise, not sport, not fitness, movement. Specific, intentional, daily movement habits woven into the fabric of how these elders wake up, walk, work, rest, and age. Three of them in particular kept appearing across the research. And when neuroscientists began studying the brains of older Japanese adults who practiced these habits, the scans were remarkable. Not because they showed the absence of aging, but because they showed something most Western researchers had stopped expecting to see. Active, plastic, responsive brains in bodies well into their 80s and 90s. Before we get into the movements, it's worth anchoring this in the research, because what you're about to hear is documented, not anecdotal. A landmark 2012 study from Tohoku University, one of Japan's most respected research institutions, followed over 40,000 adults for more than a decade and found that daily low-intensity movement, specifically the kind embedded in cultural practice rather than formal exercise, was among the strongest predictors of cognitive health in older age. Dr. Ryuta Kawashima, the neuroscientist who later became famous in the West for brain training software, spent years before that studying why Japanese elders showed dramatically lower rates of dementia in communities where formal exercise was actually relatively rare. The answer, his team concluded, wasn't what people were doing at the gym. It was what they were doing all the time, every day, without thinking of it as health behavior at all. That's the key. These are habits, not routines. 3. Aruku, the discipline of purposeful walking. Kenji was 68 when his daughter first noticed it. He was starting to forget the names of neighbors he'd known for decades. His neurologist didn't prescribe medication. He prescribed walks, not a treadmill, not a fitness tracker, just walking every day. To the market, to a neighbor down the street, in the evening, around the block after dinner. The way elderly Japanese in his town had lived their entire lives. 7,000 to 8,000 steps a day, not as exercise, but as a way of moving through the world. 6 months later, a brain scan showed something that surprised even his doctor. Kenji's hippocampus, the structure responsible for memory formation and spatial navigation, had increased in volume. This is not metaphor, it's measurable. A 2021 meta-analysis published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews confirmed it. Walking specifically, not running, not cycling, but slow, sustained, regular walking, triggers neurogenesis, the actual birth of new neurons. In adults over 60, and it doesn't require 8,000 steps to begin. Research shows meaningful hippocampal changes appear with as few as 4,000 daily steps, when the walking is consistent, purposeful, and sustained over weeks. Start with a 15-minute walk after dinner. Give it a destination. Make it a ritual. Kenji now remembers the names of all his neighbors and their dogs. Enawa thinking, the meditative edge. There is a place between inside and outside, not quite home, not quite the world, just the edge. In Japan, this space is called the Enawa, a narrow wooden veranda where elders would sit each afternoon, watching light move across a garden, letting the mind go quiet, not sleeping, not working, simply present. This is not idleness. Your brain has two modes, one for focused work, sharp, effortful, draining, and one for everything else, for making sense of the day, for processing emotions, for creativity, for memory. Scientists call it the default mode network. A 2016 Stanford study found something important. Directed attention, the focused thinking we do all day, depletes the brain. And the most effective way to restore it is simple, undirected rest near something natural. The elder on the Enawa knew this, not in those words, but in the body, in the habit. You don't need a Japanese veranda. You need 10 to 15 minutes, late afternoon, before dinner. Sit somewhere with a view of something natural, a garden, a tree, the sky, no phone, no podcast, no task. Let your eyes move softly. Let your mind wander. This is not laziness. This is maintenance. Your brain is not resting. It is working, just finely on its own terms. 1. The-Shigoto, the intelligence of the hands. And here is the one that stayed with researchers longest. In Japanese, The-Shigoto means work of the hands. It describes a broad category of daily activity: calligraphy, ikebana flower arrangement, cooking from scratch, gardening, weaving, carpentry, knitting, characterized by fine motor skill, sustained attention, and the creation of something tangible. And among long-lived Japanese elders, Teishigoto is not a hobby, it is a daily practice, often social, often passed between generations. Here's what the neuroscience tells us, and it's more striking than most people realize. Your brain has a map of your entire body. It's called the motor cortex, and it runs along the top of your brain like a headband. Now you'd expect this map to be proportional. Your torso gets a big section, your legs get a big section, but that's not what happens. The hands alone occupy nearly as much cortical space as the entire rest of the body combined. Your fingers, your palms, the subtle coordinated movements of making something, they're mapped across a massive, densely wired stretch of your brain. This is not an accident. It's the architecture of human intelligence. The hands are not tools the brain controls from a distance. They are, in a very real sense, where a huge portion of the brain lives. And this is why what you do with your hands matters so much as you age. When you knit, or throw clay, or arrange flowers, you are not just keeping your fingers busy. You are lighting up enormous regions of your cortex. You are sending activation through the motor cortex, the sensory cortex, the cerebellum, the prefrontal regions governing attention and planning. When those circuits fire together in complex, skilled, intentional sequence, they stay strong. When they go quiet, when your hands spend their days only scrolling and typing and gripping a steering wheel, those same regions begin to thin. Cortical atrophy doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly in circuits that stopped being asked to do hard, beautiful things. A 2015 study from the Mayo Clinic found that engaging in crafts or fine motor activities in midlife and late life was associated with a 45% reduction in the risk of mild cognitive impairment. 45%. Not from a drug, from using your hands with care and attention regularly over time. Think about that for a moment. When you pick up needles and yarn, you are literally illuminating half your brain, protecting it from the atrophy that silence accelerates. The hands are the brain's most direct interface with the physical world. When they go quiet, a significant portion of the cortex goes quiet with them. When they stay active, not typing, not scrolling, but actually making something, the brain stays lit. Pick something you can make with your hands. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It needs to be regular. Before you begin any of these practices, a word of genuine care. If you're managing joint pain, a recent injury, limited mobility, or you've spent years in a largely sedentary routine, please approach these habits gently. Use support when you need it. Start with the smallest version of each practice. 5 minutes instead of 20, a short walk instead of a long one. Listen to your body honestly, not critically. If you have a specific medical condition, speak with your doctor before making changes. These movements are gentle by design, but your body's particular history deserves to be honored in how you begin. These habits don't ask you to fight aging. Japanese elders who practice them aren't trying to live forever. They're choosing each day a quality of presence, a garden, a walk, hands that make something. The brain doesn't need to be trained. It needs to be used while warmly, regularly, with intention. Start with one, just one.